Welcome to the 3 Secrets Turning College Recruitment Chaos and Confusion into Clarity. My name's Elliot. It's a pleasure to meet you. We're going to wait a couple of minutes. We have some people that are still coming in, filing in a little bit later. So just going to take some of this time to introduce myself, who we are, what we're doing, how we're different, and then we'll jump into everything. So first off, thank you so much, Milos. Thank you so much, Jorge. We have been brought in, Recruitfluency, my team, my staff, to act as an in-house recruitment partner for PSG Chicago. So what does that mean? That means that you're going to have access to resources, webinars, e-learning courses. You're going to get to meet with my staff and I at certain points within your recruitment process. You're going to get our software. There are a ton of different ways that we're going to help you leverage what we bring to the table so that you could maximize your exposure and really start understanding what the recruitment process looks like, setting yourself up for success as you move forward. With that being said, a couple of housekeeping rollouts before we move forward. So in the chat, we have a link to 2 different options. The first one is the PSG community link. There is a ton of resources, like I just mentioned, in our community. The best thing about the community is it's just for PSG Chicago, and it's broken down into different grade categories, parents, coaches, and then announcements. So within these different channels, we can have different conversations. You can ask different questions relative to where you are in the process, what you should be doing based on your age. You could also get feedback from other people in the community, different people on different teams, see if you're asking similar questions. So it's a really good way to stay connected. And then that's 24/7 access, right? So whenever you have a question, you'll get a response within 3, 4, 5 minutes max. The next link is going to be for our seniors only. Seniors only, you have a free onboarding call with Toma, who's the head of college recruitment here at Recruitfluency. Toma is a former professional player. Toma has been a director at clubs throughout Chicago, and he's helped many student athletes go to the next level. Alongside with myself and him working with you guys hand in hand, our goal is to really help facilitate that process of opening doors for you, helping you cut in line, get in front of some other players that might have more exposure at this very moment in time. So if you're a senior, you need to take that opportunity if you're serious about playing at the next level. I will say this. Seniors, you need to be better, because we've rolled this out a couple of times. So if you don't take the initiative, which is some of the things we're going to touch on today, the process isn't going to come to you, right? So with that said, I hope everyone now had some time to get in, settle in, learn a little bit about myself, a little bit about my staff, and what we're trying to accomplish with PSG Chicago and the college recruitment process. So at any time, feel free to jump into the chat, ask some questions. Toma's on the other side. He's going to be answering them for you. And then lastly, we are going to, you know what? We're just going to jump into it. So my name's Elliot. I am a former Division I All-American center back, played for Lehigh University. I was a 2-year captain there. And then I went right into college coaching, and I coached for Florida Atlantic University, which is a very decent Division I program. We won a conference championship there in my 2nd year, and I was the head of recruitment. So nationally, internationally, recruiting players from all over the world. And it was a really exciting experience, and it also taught me a lot from a different perspective than most people think. And that's the perspective that we're going to speak about today. In this first meeting, I'm not so worried about timelines, deadlines. Yes, they're important, especially if you're older, but that's the initiative you guys need to take, reaching out to us so that we could help put together that blueprint, that game plan for you. What we want to focus on is really helping you understand the strategy. What are coaches looking for? What piques coaches' attention? How do you get in front of coaches? How do you skip in front of the line? How do you communicate with them, right? So we're going to go through like these 3 secrets, which in non-marketing type talk, right? It's, what are the foundations that you need to have to be successful within this process? Okay. We're going to preface those 3 with a little bit of information so that everyone's on the same page. The college recruitment process right now, the way it's set up, completely broken. What do I mean? A lot of college recruitment agencies, services that target you, that call you up maybe 5-6 times a week, they're set up as a marketplace, right? And a marketplace is a structure where you have student athletes here and you have college coaches here. And it sounds like it would be amazing. However, college coaches, not only do they have their own, but also have businesses. And their business, big business, is camps, ID camps, clinics. And we're going to talk about that because they're not the devil if you're picking and choosing the right ones. However, when you have a marketplace, it becomes a one-way sort of highway for mass marketing. So you never understand if you're truly being recruited by a coach or if they've just really sort of bamboozled you a little bit into thinking that you might be a good fit for their program. And this is where the frustration comes in with a lot of parents, expectations, and just not really having any expectations that are realistic. And that's our last piece. That's the last piece that we need to bring to the table is we need to be honest, straightforward with families and student athletes to say, listen, this is where you should be targeting. This is the level. This is where you're going to be the most successful. So one more aspect before we jump into the three aspects, the 3 secrets. So there's a school out there for everyone. That's no lie. I've seen it at every single level, Division 1, 2, 3, NA, IA, JUCO. There's a school for you. The most difficult part is finding a school that's going to meet your needs academically and athletically and that they align, right? So a lot of times we have really strong academic student athletes and they want to go to these top schools academically, but they're just not quite at the level to play at that school. So now they have to sacrifice, right? And does it make sense for them to play in school or just go to college and get a great education? So that's where it gets a little sticky. And that's going to be different for every single student athlete, every single parent. You're going to have your own approach and your own thoughts on how you want to navigate that, right? But let me say this. If you want to play in college, if you have the desire and you're okay with, and you have the understanding that you might have to give up some academic, how would I want to say it? Academic excellence, if you will, to play at a different school or to be part of a different university, right? But that doesn't mean there's not a spot for you. There's a spot for every single player right now that wants to play, if they're willing to let some of that go, a lot of times even let the ego go, right? Because we're typically not as good as we think we are. I always thought I was a lot better than I was too. So don't take that personally. Whoops. Okay. So let's jump in. These are the 3 topics that we really want to touch on: the division, the formula, and the timeline. The division is going to be very straightforward because it's a self-selecting process. I'll get into that. The formula is really simple. In fact, that word simple is even in the formula, but you just need to trust the process and trust that we're giving you the correct information. And then the time is really, you're powerless over it and it's not in your control. Us coming in now, we can only give you this information. So we'll speak about how you can maximize your time, especially if you're early on in high school and you have some more time to go through the process and go through it correctly. So what is the division having to do with this foundational understanding of how to go about the recruitment process? Well, targeting the correct division is going to generate the most genuine, realistic responses, credibility from those coaches, right? If you are targeting the right schools, the right divisions, you're going to get responses. If you're not, and it could work in both ways. So if you're targeting schools that are a bit above your level athletically, you're probably not going to get responses. That's when someone comes into the role of really helping facilitate you on a one-on-one basis and maybe get you in front of some people because they have some network, some connections. And we work with players in that regard, but we don't love to because we also need to be realistic and we need to, put our credibility on the line and say, listen, this is where you should be playing. I know you want to play at a Division I school, but trust us. We've done this so many times. We know you're going to be happier here. And then it works the other way too. So if you're targeting schools that are a little bit lower, a lot of coaches just have this mindset. And it's not a great mindset. And a lot of coaches are lazy, very lazy. And I could tell you that from being in it, the grind. If they think you're a little bit better and they don't have a chance for you, even though you're reaching out and it's not so consistent once in a while, they're not going to waste time. I think that is the biggest mistake they could have made. In fact, when I was coaching at Florida Atlantic University, all I did was go for those top level players and we got them 40, 50% of the time, right? However, it's not the general really go-getter sort of attacking the process from the coach's perspective that way. They want to make this process easy for them, as easy for their players. So making sure you're targeting the right level is going to be super important. So now you're probably thinking, well, I'm a Division I player, but I mean, there's nothing else to it, right? No. Let's figure out how we're going to come to a conclusion. Which is the hardest to do, is have a self-appraisal process. Like, really have a good understanding of what your assets are, what your liabilities are as a player. What do you do well? What do you need to improve on? It also comes into, taking action and going on to different websites and watching games and watching the highlights, but also watching full games, because now you could do that, right? Everything is televised as far as just being on the internet, if you will. So you have the access to it, but now you just got to dedicate the time. And then while you're watching, am I at this level or not? The next piece to it is you need to ask a coach, not just any coach. You need to ask a coach that has played at that level or higher, or coached at that level or higher. Otherwise, they're not really going to have a great understanding of what that level is, because when you transition from club, even at MLS next level, into college, bigger, stronger, faster, less time on the ball, shut down space quicker. It's a different game. And it takes a while for student athletes to just get up to speed, So that's the primary reason why you don't see a lot of freshmen, even sophomores, getting on the field, right? Because they're behind the scenes practicing, getting used to that speed of play so that they're making better decisions quicker and working their way into that system. So a realistic expectation or appraisal of yourself is going to be paramount. You're going to have to watch games. You're going to have to go to games. You're going to have to go online so that you could get a better understanding of what that level is. And then you're going to have to ask the right coaches. And the last piece I'm going to say on this is do your very best. It's tough because of the system in which we live, but do your best to not ask a coach that has played at that level or coached at that level where there's a monetary value associated with it, right? So if I'm training with a director at a club and I'm doing some, personal training with them, or, another coach in the club who has a high level licensing and is coached at that level, and I'm getting trained by them, don't ask those coaches. Try to find someone else. Because whenever there's a monetary value attached to it, it's going to be a tough conversation. That's not to say that those coaches at those higher levels wouldn't give you the right information. I'm trying to sure-proof it or fireproof it, right? To say, listen, we don't cloudy judgment. Is this student athlete going to keep coming back to me if I tell them, they're a D3 athlete? No, maybe I'll tell them they're a little bit better than they are. These are the things that we see, coaches really struggle with. So if feasible, if possible, definitely try to get a coach or coaches that there's no, financial obligation to. The last piece is when you're going through this process, I could tell you a number of times when I would receive, 300-400 emails a day sometimes, I would get one or two that would say, hey, coach, I don't know if I could play at this level, but I'd really like you to get back to me and see, give me a little bit of an assessment. Does it make sense for us to continue talking or not? And if you word that email correctly and you keep it short, brief, and to the point, and you put a little, a video on there, whether it's a full game or a highlight video, a lot of times those coaches are going to get back to you because it's an anomaly. It's like almost refreshing. It's like, oh, wow, this kid doesn't, think he's Pele. I'd like to have a conversation with him. And then when they respond, they say, hey, maybe you're not at that level. Thank you so much for that response. If I could just have one more minute of your time, what would be some schools you think would be on my level? And it's a great way to get feedback. So a little hack as far as college recruitment, communicating with coaches, what that looks like. The SCO formula, stupid name. I hope you remember it. What does the SCO formula stand for? Well, it's a really simple formula, but the amount of opportunity that comes from it is really significant, but it's not easy to accomplish. So what do I mean by that? It's one of the biggest things that we as human beings struggle with all the time. Consistency. So simplicity plus consistency is going to skyrocket your opportunity to play at the next level. So let me give you an example. A lot of times student athletes will write these absurdly long emails about them, their history, their this, their that. It's not necessary. And we have, email templates in our community for that, which we'll also speak about. But if we're able to, from an early stage in your process, start reaching out to coaches consistently once a month, once every other month, and showing them value, what do you do well? What asset would you be to that program? That's when you're going to have the most effective response rate from college coaches. The trickiest part is doing it consistently. What am I going to tell them this time? These are the things that student athletes will say to us when we work one-on-one. Elliot, I don't know what to tell them anymore. Well, tell them about your last game. Tell them about things you could have done better and things that you did really well. We speak about, and not to go on too much of a tangent, but we speak about a value proposition for companies, how they highlight themselves in the market. Putting together a value proposition for yourself is going to be really important. And all it is a really succinct way to introduce yourself to a coach and provide them your assets and the value that you're going to bring to the table for their program, right? So I'll give you an example. Coach, I'm Elliot, a 6'4" center back with a 4.4 GPA, a 4.0 GPA, a 4.4 40, and incredible leadership skills, right? So a really succinct way to just sort of lead, put it in a subject line, open up with it on a phone call. There's a lot of ways that you can really market yourself consistently to coaches. A couple other things is a team within their university, the volleyball program, won a championship. Coach, I just saw that Florida Atlantic University won a championship in volleyball. That's incredible. Do you have any updates on any of the ID camps that we spoke about last time, right? just engaging. So important. Okay. So what is that SCO? Simplicity plus consistency equals opportunity. What is that showcasing to a college coach? It's showcasing that you're consistent. It's showcasing that you're engaging. It's showcasing that you're mature. It's showcasing that if they are going to have you in that program one day, you're probably not going to be a pain in the ass. You're probably going to dot your I's, cross your T's, and just get your stuff done. And creating that type of persona and the way you present to coaches is ultimately what they really are looking for. They're looking for student athletes who are going to work hard in the classroom and on the field. They're looking for student athletes that are good people. They're student athletes that are not going to cause them a lot of trouble, because at the end of the day, they're managing this company, and they have 25, 30, sometimes 18, 19, 20-year-old players. The more mature, the better it is for them, the less time they need to be doing stupid things, getting them their players out of trouble, right? So presenting yourself in that way is going to be really important. And then the last piece I'll say just on this slide is like, that comes down to the small things. So this session right here, my background, super clean. Presentable, at least I think I am, right? I'm wearing my company polo. These are the little intricacies. These are like the subtleties, I should say, that you need to be thinking about when you get on the phone. Are you going to be, speaking to them properly? Are you going to be asking the right questions? Are you going to be asking stupid questions? And I shouldn't say stupid questions. I should say, are you going to be asking them in a way that isn't necessarily appropriate? Like, these are the things that you need to think about. It's just like going into a job interview, right? You want to be putting your best foot forward so that they have a perception of you, so that they have a positive perception of you. Cool. Okay. A little bit more strategy here. So what we suggest our athletes do all the time, create 10, 15 different email templates in our community, which I'll speak about even a little bit more at the end. We have 55 different, pre-templated emails for you. Go in there, change those things up, and just have that access to them, and just change the nuances within so that you can be consistent. And it's not going to take you a lot of time on the back end. Every time you want to write an email, you're going to have to generate a new one. And then do the same thing for phone scripts. Different questions that you could be asking at different timelines throughout the process. So if you're in the ninth grade, you know that you're not going to get a call back from a college coach. But that doesn't mean you can't reach out. Doesn't mean you can't leave a voicemail at 8 o'clock at night so they just hear your voice and start putting a name to a voice, a name to a face, whatever that is. So you're going to have different ways you're approaching and speaking to coaches at different timelines throughout your college recruitment journey. And then social media, use it, heavily use it if you have the time. Create an introduction on social media, also direct message coaches on social media. So when it comes to this strategy, have a couple of different topics that you can reach out to coaches saying, hey, coach, this is blah, blah, blah. Saw this. Awesome. Right? You get the point. I don't want to belabor it anymore. The last piece of this is time. And it's sensitive, right? Because seniors, if you haven't really started the process right now and you're just getting into it, you need to be really realistic about what your expectations are and where you're going to be able to really, find programs that have availability. So for the seniors, it's tough. If you're a freshman, female, male, you have the time. And the time is so important for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, the more time you can put into it, right? You haven't messed it up yet, is what I'm saying. The second piece is from a strategical perspective and how we really suggest you go about the process, which we'll get into in the next webinar, is how you're approaching college ID camps, which ones you're going to, and how many you're getting to over the summers throughout the season if they're hosting them, in their off season, right? So when you have time, you can start creating your list of 15, 20 target reach safety schools, 5 to 7 of each. And if you're in the 9th grade and you could commit to going to 3, 4 of those ID camps a summer, if it's feasible financially, if it's feasible, through travel, you're going to have a really good opportunity to get in front of the right coaches, especially if you've done the work on the front end, which is number one, have a really good understanding and self-assessment, a self-appraisal of yourself. Then you'll be going to the right schools, the right ID camps, communicating with coaches. And the communication that you need to have with the coaches is just building rapport. So if I used to get a call from a kid out of the blue from, Tennessee, and I was down at Florida Atlantic University, and they asked me a couple of questions about the program, if I was a good fit for the program, you have to understand we're getting hundreds and hundreds of these emails all the time. I might not be responding to that player. If I had time, maybe I would. However, if I, as a coach, know that I've met you before, we've had an interaction before, you've come to a camp, you've shown interest, you were consistent, there's no way that I'm not getting back to you. And that's all about relationship building. You don't need to be the coach's best friend, nor will you ever be, but you need to put yourself in place to be able to get a genuine response. Genuine responses come through relationship building, and they come through asking direct questions. So what do I mean by asking direct questions? When we're speaking to college coaches, a lot of times we're protecting ourselves from getting responses that we don't want to hear. And we might not even know that we're doing it. When we're writing emails, when we're getting on the phone, when we're creating direct messages on social media to coaches, once you've built a rapport, asking a question like, Coach, am I a good fit for your program? I would love to hear your genuine advice. And just to let you know, I'm okay with hearing that I'm not. I would just follow up and ask you, what are some good programs you think, I should be looking at? Like, those are the real conversations, but they don't happen often. One, because the student athlete doesn't ask them. They're too fearful, and they're not aware that that's the reason. So they get caught in this purgatory, right? Coach isn't getting back to me. I don't know what to do next. Like, it's because you're not asking the right questions. And then the final piece of that is college coaches, they're humans. So it's uncomfortable to tell someone they're not good enough. It's uncomfortable to tell a kid, no, you don't have a chance to play at my university. However, if you reflect on your life and relationships with people, you're able to have a lot more openness to your conversations when you know the person, when you've spoken to them before. It's almost like you feel like you owe them the truth. And that's through relationship building. So posing questions to college coaches, asking them direct questions, but also not making it come across as if you're going to be emotionally affected is really going to be the best way to do it. So just to touch on this outreach, like this strategy once more, if you could go to 3, 4 camps Some are going into 10th grade, into 11th, into 12th. You're going to have a really good opportunity to speak to a bunch of coaches. And that is when those key connections are really going to come into place. Okay. The last piece before we just go file through and just do like a brief overview is this. No matter what anyone tells you, if you're a student athlete, heed my advice. Listen to this. It could be the difference between you not, getting recruited at all. It could be the difference between you losing a scholarship. It could be the difference between a coach completely dropping you from their program. If your social media is not presenting you in the way we spoke about earlier, in a professional way, if it's not presenting you in a one of moral, high moral fiber, if you will, it's an issue. And it's an issue for two reasons. One, coaches can see behind the scenes, right? Once again, I said they really want to make their job as easy as possible. It's fair to them, right? They don't want to deal with a kid who's just getting in trouble all the time. And the second piece is once you sign with a school, once you have that opportunity, you become part of that school. You become part of that fabric. You become an extension of that school. So it would be me coming to this presentation because Milos and Jorge brought us on to be representative, to be professional, to provide information, to provide a service. It was like if I came with my shirt off and drinking a beer, right? It wouldn't be a good look. You need to make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's when it comes to the social media. I've seen so many student athletes lose a lot, quite a lot. And now with social media, it's just really difficult because you don't know even sometimes if you're on it, right? But control what you can control, create all new social media accounts. A lot of coaches will tell you, don't do that. Well, they're just looking at it from their perspective, right? Which is, well, I really do want to see who this kid is, right? I'd probably tell them don't do it because then I wouldn't really get the genuine thing. I mean, my moral, outlook on life is, you shouldn't have to, right? But why not be safe? That's sort of the way I approach my life. That's sort of the way I believe you need to approach this process. If you have any further questions about that, when in doubt, turn it off, start new ones. And then it's really easy to also track and understand who are the coaches that are reaching out to you consistently. It doesn't get lost in the mix. And you could have really good sort of streamlined communication through those various social media platforms. One hack when it comes to building out your profile on social media, there are ways that you could come up in front of searches before other people without having to do with the number count, without having to do with how many followers, likes you have. And it's this. People search in social media by different key phrases. For example, if I'm a college coach and I'm searching for recruits, I'm going to put in some very specific things. If I'm looking for a striker, I might put in class of 2024, class of 2025, striker. Those need to be in your username because your username is searchable. When they are looking through, filtering through, whether you're a defender, attacking central midfielder, a camp, those are some of the buzzwords you want to put in. So if I was a recruit for 2025 and I was a winger, I would probably put in winger prospect 2024-25 soccer, and incorporate those slew of words into your username somehow. The name of my company is Recruitfluency. I did that on purpose. When websites get crawled, it's the same thing. It's like a search. So recruit's going to be in there. It's going to be part of the name. So my SEO, not to get into the intricate aspects of it, but I'm going to come up more times than not, especially after I build my authority within that platform. And then the next piece is just post as much as you can, but have fun with it. Post professional stuff, but post often if you can, right? Like that's going to be the most, that's going to be the best way for you to really get some exposure. Besides DMing coaches and creating that network, that's the most significant. And then I just thought of one more. I think about this stuff all the time. When you DM a coach, if you DM them writing it out, hey coach, this is blah, 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 they sort of get the gist, right? Like they might not read it depending upon the school, the size, like how many do they get a day? If you leave a voice note, there's a little bit of intrigue there, right? What is this? Why did someone leave me a voice note? What are they going to say? I mean, I have not listened to voice notes because I thought they were going to be negative, right? So it really does have an emotional impact on you and does play a role in your process. So as a coach, as a prospect, I'm saying, creating a little bit of intrigue, maybe a coach listens to that and they say, oh, okay, now they heard you, right? And that's the point, to get in front of them as often and as early as possible. Sorry for going on a tangent there, a little long-winded, but hopefully it was helpful. Okay. In closing, you have access to support. We want you to take initiative, especially seniors who are in crunch time right now. Even though the season might not be going on in full force, that doesn't mean that every day players aren't signing, every day, rosters are getting smaller. So I will send out a link that's going to look like this. It's going to say seniors, free Zoom call. Sign up for that. Pick a time. Meet with Tomo. We'll start you on the right path to getting your first 25 target reach safety schools. We'll go through that process. We'll map it out for you. We'll give you the blueprint. We'll tell you these are the 10 things you need to do. And then you could sign up and meet with us again once you accomplish those 10 things, right? We're going to make it as simple as possible for you. Parents, you're more than welcome to jump on that call, be part of that. You should be part of that. But I just want you to take initiative for two reasons. One, for your future. Two, because we need to produce as well, right? Jorge, Milos brought us on to help get you student athletes into college. It doesn't look good if we're not doing that. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is if we have a pulse on what's going on and we can help you through that process. So you will get that after. There's also in the community, there's also a link on the side where it gives you access right to it. So the link you're going to get is going to be to the community. Within that community, we have e-learning courses. We have a whole course on how to go through this process. A lot of times student athletes think they know everything. They don't do it. You should. Parents, you should definitely do it. It really phrases it and portrays it in a light that is a little bit different from just you being a parent. And they're short, 2 to 3 minutes each, breaking down, selecting a group of target schools, how to connect with coaches, how they evaluate you, official, unofficial visits, scholarships, academic, athletic, etc. Once you have that link to the community, you then have a couple of tabs up top, and you could go into courses or you could go into discussion. Discussion is that community aspect where you can ask questions, where you can ask whatever you want based on where you are in that process. So we really hope that you take advantage of that access. Right now, we have one student athlete signed up. Kudos to that student athlete. And I know exactly who it is because they were early, they were consistent, they came often, right? So jump on that. It's going to be of great value to you. undoubtedly. And then there are other things that we're building out as well. So we're building out some video databases on different topics so that you could quickly just get some information instead of going through and sitting through an entire course, as well as different courses on different aspects of the recruitment process. So I brought up social media today. One of the courses that we just finished up adding to the library is how to create your Twitter bio, right? So it just goes through step by step what that looks like, gives you examples of, you know, how you're going to draw attention and gain exposure. We're going to keep adding to that. So it's going to be a great resource for you. So look out for that email and look out for that link to the PSG Chicago community. Thank you so much for your time. I hope everyone who has questions on the back end got them answered with Toma. I can't multitask, so it's just sort of out of my control. Toma knows this process inside and out, and I just wanted to thank you guys so much. It's fabulous to meet everyone. I am looking forward to a great relationship with my team, with you, the staff at PSG. Thank you again, Milos. Thank you again, Jorge. Speak to you guys soon.